Fact: did you know that 84.31% of all Japanese anime titles in 2024 are based on other pre-published work like manga, light novels, or games and visual novels? That means we get to compare our favorite and not so favorite anime stories with their written counterparts, and dive deep into story changes, animation choices, character redesigns, and even CGI. This is Anime vs. Manga for that isekai anime where they couldn't figure out their CGI budget. My name is Nathan, and together with Sam, we are the side characters. You know how every YouTuber out there says, I've read this and that so you don't have to? Well, when it comes to I became the strongest with the failure frame, you really have to, cause that manga is lit, but this anime adaptation is Okay, that may sound a little bit harsh, so let's dive right into it. The characters. I Became the Strongest with the Failure Frame, aka Failure Frame, is the story of Mimori Touka, who has been hero summoned, along with his high school classmates, into a fantasy world by a goddess whose globules might not defy gravity, but the thin strips of her dress holding up the PG rating of this anime sure do. Even though you are summoned as heroes and shown that you can do magic, you are immediately expected to show off your talent for it in the typical touch that glass ball ceremony where the whole class is sorted into jerks, and more jerks, ranging from S to E rank. Unfortunately, our Mimori Touka is the only one in the lowest rank E. Not only that, he also seems to have the skill of abnormal status, which means that there is a less than 1% chance of his magic actually working. Apparently, this combo of poor attributes is what they call failure frame. And so, just like Twitter's last barely together team that maintained their online rules and policies, Mimori Touka was asked to leave. However, thanks to our boy Touka having gone through some actual real life and also being an edgy high schooler, he gives the bird to the goddess as he is being unceremoniously teleported into the most dangerous dungeon, where of course the goddess expects him to die. Mimori Touka, now dumped into this crazy den of monsters and armed with level 1 spells, Paralyze, Poison, and Sleep, spells he wistfully admits no hero would claim to be a master at, Mimori fights through hundreds and thousands of grotesque monsters to get out of the dungeon, somehow surviving on luck until all he sees is just a sea of XP points in front of him that jack up his level from 1 to 1,789. He also realizes that his abnormal status of failure frame that was supposed to have a less than 1% chance of working, in fact, flawlessly executes 100% of the time. So our boy, Mimori Touka, decides that no matter what, he will survive. For the day, he gives that shitty goddess a good hard punch. His words, not ours. Okay, if you're familiar with isekai stories, you know our boy gots to have a familiar. And yes, it's a slime Touka calls Piggy Maru. Side note, our guy really needs to learn how to name stuff. Side note, earlier it used to be dragons, then it was Fenrirs, and now it's slimes. I really do think the next era of familiars in anime stories would be octopuses? Octopi? Well, tentacles. Anyway, we, of course, need a female lead in this tale of vengeance in a fantasy world. And here we have Ceres Ashrain, an elf knight who allegedly deserted her kingdom and is now on the run with a bounty on her head. Mimori Touka accidentally ends up killing the bounty hunters after her, and after a series of coincidental encounters, decides to hire her as his bodyguard and guide him to this world. She is also drop-dead gorgeous, and men are always salivating over her when they see her. So, that gives us the main characters that we follow in each episode. There's also a side B parallel viewpoint that we see along Mimori Touka's, and that is of his douchebag classmates who form their own cliques and have their own circle jerks over how many levels they have upgraded by killing low-level monsters, while our E-rank Touka creates a literal bloodbath by killing the greatest heroes of the world, the Black Dragon Knights, and gets to level 1,797. At the same time, his S-rank classmates, who have been showing off fantasy world clothes and Ikemen poses. In later episodes, we encounter Eve Speed, a leopard-kin slave, Gladiator, and her dark elf, Imoto, who joins Mimori Touka and Ceres Ashrain in their journey to find the Witch of the Golden Monsters Forest, who can help Touka with forbidden spells to attack the goddess and exact his vengeance. Story adaptation. Apart from the fact that we would have loved to see a close-up of Mimori's defiance of the goddess, just like in the manga, we think that the first couple of episodes of the anime might actually easily have been better storytelling than its manga counterpart. Here, the anime does a much better job of showing the relationship dynamics of the cavalcade of characters from this high school class, which will become relevant later on. For example, that whole scene from episode 1 where Mimori Touka is being shunned by all of his classmates except for Sogo Ayaka, also known as "I'm an S-class hero, and S stands for savior complex, but I'm also shy." Where was I? Oh yeah, that scene where just before he is to be discarded, Mimori Touka is being shunned by his classmates while the goddess tries to manipulate them into believing they were doing the right thing. That doesn't happen exactly the same way in the manga, and we think it was masterfully done in the anime. It's an excellent example of how mob psychology can be adapted into a scene with so many characters. I'm sure my fellow weebs out there are sure to ask this question. Excuse me, side characters with a Z? Is this story even good? Well, short answer, yes. As an isekai summoning medieval fantasy overpowered hero virgin with an elf trope story, it checks all the boxes for marketability. The manga was originally adapted from the light novel series and continues to be impactful in its delivery. The manga escalates the action with each chapter, and you get deeply immersed into this battle world where our hero just cannot catch a break. Each panel is beautifully drawn and storyboarded so that each scene leaves you feeling like you learned something fascinatingly unique about either the characters, the world building, or even about leveling up in life. And honestly, the anime adaptation delivered on that feeling at the start. Though the story has been adapted for TV from the manga fairly well, as in, it covers all the necessary scenes, it still seems to be missing essential dialogues and backstories that add depth to the characters. For example, while massacring his way out of the dungeon and taking down the dungeon boss, Mimori Touka realizes that he no longer needed to hide his apathy. He always knew he didn't have the same emotions as others, but pretended to be a decent guy for the sake of his benefactors. With his newfound goal of killing anyone who tries to harm him, he is now going to maximize his failure frame, abilities, and destroy the goddess who put him in the ruins of Disposal Dungeon, like he was trash. Though this is mentioned briefly in the anime, the manga takes every chance it gets to reinforce his true emotionless personality again and again, pretty much after every significant interaction. The fact that this easy reminder is missing from the anime makes the story seem somehow disjointed for the way he acts. For instance, in the manga, when Ceres Ashrain gets into trouble at the prize-giving ball and misses her appointment with Mimori Touka, his first thought is that she must have ran away with the prize money and the valuable blue stone he'd given her, or had plans to kill him. But when he finds out that that wasn't the case, he goes to save her because he'd already paid her to be his bodyguard. This cold-heartedness is straight up missing from the anime, making him look like an 8th grader Chinibyo when he talks about death and destruction. Apart from this, they simply didn't address the reason why Ceres Ashrain left her home kingdom, and that has to do with the request from Princess Katuya she used to serve. It's a key part of Ceres Ashrain's backstory, and it also explains the kingdom's obsession with Ceres and the bounty placed on her by him with the condition that her dead body be brought back clean for his use. Yeah, that was a thing. The backstory of Sivit Gartland of the Black Dragon Knights, who is considered the greatest hero of this world, is also quite interesting, but seems to have been skipped in the anime. Even the reveal of Eve Speed's betrayal felt rushed. There were so many opportunities to showcase the vile business of Bloodsport and how it shaped people's perceptions of beastkin, like Eve Speed. But we do understand that it's not easy to draw and animate a whole Gladiator Coliseum and its crowd. For this one, we will keep our snobby noses down. The animation. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. It's honestly more like the white elephant in the room. CGI. Now, we are not purists. We really do love CGI. It allows binge-hungry weebs like us to get anime titles faster, smoother, and with more frames per second than the next cyberpunk video game about to break our water-cooled CPU tower. How else could we experience the mighty complexities of the Infinity Castle in Demon Slayer? Or be able to see every single smoothed-out old man wrinkle of guts in Berserk? Controversial topic, we know. But there's CGI. And then there's this compilation of what every artist touching Blender 4.0 for the first time thinks they can turn their 3D donut into. You know what I'm talking about. Having said that, credit where credit is due. The studio behind the anime didn't rely on substandard CGI for some of the more story-relevant scenes, like the fight with Sivit Gartland and the Black Dragon Knights in episode 6, or when they manufactured a non-existent scene of Ceres Ashrain feeding our boy an aphrodisiac. But for regular anime viewers, the first couple of episodes of a new anime are crucial in deciding whether they want to continue watching the whole season, and this is where they drop the ball. and the CGI budget. After the awesome first episode, it was a huge letdown to see critical scenes interwoven with robotic-looking animation, where our boy Touka suddenly looks skinny like he's been on Ozempic for years, and then a second later, back to looking like a healthy high schooler. Watch just 6 seconds of this scene, and you'll know why we feel like rage quitting. In a lot of ways, we do understand that drawing complex scenes is hard, but isn't the point of having 3D assets for a scene to satisfy all objectives of a story in a given location without worrying about redrawing things over and over again? For example, the dungeon boss fight from episode 2 lasts all of 7 minutes and 15 seconds, as they rush through the strats that Touka goes through in the story. If you'd never read the manga, you would have left wondering why he didn't need to fight the boss right this instant, when he could simply come back when he was stronger. We think that the reason why they glossed over a lot of this part of the scene was because they didn't want to let the botched assets of the scene stay in our minds too long. The potential to make this encounter very memorable was unfortunately lost, and we blame the CGI decisions. Now, we can already hear many of you furiously typing into your keyboards and telling us how it's hard to do anime adaptations and that we should go farther ourselves. Oh, while you're busy typing that comment, don't forget to subscribe so that you can write more comments on our other videos, and also click on that notification bell so that you are on a regular commenting schedule to level up your skills. Let's get back into looking at the scenes that didn't need texture assets, but we already bought the whole bundle, so let's slap it on everywhere. I swear, this anime has more unnecessary PNGs of high quality texture than the most try-hard newbie game developer building their next Call of Duty on Unity. Like, what is this? And this. This scene is just them talking and strategizing. How hard is it to use a filter on that back wall so that it matches the art style to the rest of the assets? And, since this is a 3D manipulated space, why can't the camera angles change as the scene progresses? Ah, is that you commenting there? Hello! To be fair, it does sound like we are nitpicking, but when you watch this anime, you can't unsee any of this. And it keeps dragging you into highs and lows, jarring you out of the story as you start noticing only the CGI jumps. And that is unfortunate, because Failure Frame deserves an audience. The story of Failure Frame, I became the strongest and annihilated everything with low-level spells, is a tale of survival when humanity has rejected you and you can only rely on what little you have to bring down even the greatest force. And with that, let's wrap up this video of anime versus manga Failure Frame. Thank you for tuning in. Do also comment on which anime we should cover in our next video. See you next time.